Good evening. In American entertainment, few figures occupy stranger territory than Dave Chappelle, a man whose genius built an empire, whose controversies threatened to dismantle it, and whose contradictions have now spilled from the stage into the social media feeds of everyone from Grammy-winning rappers to sharp-tongued musicians with absolutely nothing to lose. Tonight, we untangle a story that stretches across a New York bar. A Netflix special dropped on the last night of a year, a blunt pass backstage in Detroit, and a Billboard chart that, for the first time in history, added a comedian's name. This is not one story. It is 5 threads from the same fraying fabric. It began, as so many modern controversies do, at approximately 3 in the morning on a social media platform where nuance goes to perish. Azealia Banks, never a woman to select silence when combustion is available, posted to X, declaring that Dave Chappelle is, in her precise phrasing, genuinely a tranny chaser. Banks did not speak in abstractions. She furnished a location. The Box, a notorious nightclub in Lower Manhattan. She furnished a timeline, 4 hours. And she furnished a victim, 2 of her transgender friends, whom Chappelle allegedly pursued with such intensity that a bartender intervened and asked the group to vacate the premises. He was sweating my 2 trans friends for like 4 hours after the Box NYC, Banks wrote. The bartender actually had to come and ask us to leave. When a user questioned whether Banks had fabricated the encounter, she leaned further into the allegation rather than retreating from it, even acknowledging a separate, personal encounter with Chappelle, which she described without remorse or embarrassment. She called him a black legend, suggesting that in her moral accounting, private attraction and public condemnation can coexist in the same man. Chappelle has not responded. His representatives have offered no statement. The silence, in its own way, speaks. What makes this accusation particularly sharp is its context. Just weeks prior, Chappelle told NPR host Michael Martin that he resented how Republicans weaponized his transgender jokes for political agendas.
Right before I went on stage, they gave me a list of all the things I wasn't supposed to address.
He called it a weaponized version of his comedy, one he never intended. Banks, in return, essentially argued that a man's private behavior and public posturing cannot occupy separate moral zip codes indefinitely. To understand why Banks' words carried such explosive weight, you need to rewind to the final hours of 2023, specifically December 31st, the night most Americans were pouring champagne and most comedians were not releasing Netflix specials. Chappelle was. The Dreamer arrived as Chappelle's 7th collaboration with the streaming platform. Rather than allow the year to close quietly, he opened his set with a story about actor Jim Carrey, who acted as comedian Andy Kaufman on a 1999 film set to such a committed degree that Chappelle could not access the real man behind the performance. The punchline, delivered with rehearsed casualness. That's how trans people make me feel. Within minutes, the special had already broken 2 promises. Earlier in the same set, Chappelle announced, to what read as strategic laughter, that he was abandoning the trans community as comedic material entirely. If you came here thinking I'm gonna make fun of those people again, you've come to the wrong show, he quipped. I ain't saying shit about them, maybe 3 or 4 times tonight, but that's it. That parenthetical, maybe 3 or 4 times, was not a slip of the tongue. It was the architecture of the joke itself. Critics across multiple outlets noted that Chappelle's disclaimer was itself the punchline, designed to acknowledge the criticism while rendering it toothless by proceeding exactly as predicted. Chappelle didn't stop at the trans community. Sensing, perhaps, that the same battlefield had grown stale, he announced a pivot. Tonight, I'm doing all handicap jokes, he declared. They're not as organized as the gays, and I love punching down. Disability rights advocates, LGBTQ+ organizations, and cultural critics responded swiftly. Scholars at the University of New South Wales published analysis arguing that Chappelle's disability material, which included mocking a wheelchair-using former congressman and leaning into ableist stereotypes about paraplegic sexuality, was not satire. It was, they argued, ableism wearing a punchline as camouflage. Netflix, which had previously weathered an employee walkout and a protest rally of over 100 people following Chappelle's 2021 special, The Closer, issued no response. CEO Ted Sarandos, who once said Chappelle's material didn't cross the line on hate before privately admitting he had screwed up, remained conspicuously quiet again. The pattern, critics observed, was now undeniable. Controversy, silence, renewal of contract, repeat. Amid all the philosophical debate about comedy's moral boundaries, Danny Brown walked into an interview with Hip Hop DX and, almost parenthetically, revealed that he might be personally responsible for one of Chappelle's worst professional nights. The Detroit rapper, known for Quaranta, for his singular voice in hip-hop, and for a degree of self-awareness that makes most of his peers seem opaque, described the incident with the kind of resigned humor you only summon when the damage is already irreversible. It traces back to Big Sean's 2020 album Detroit 2, which contains an interlude titled Story by Dave Chappelle. In it, Chappelle recounts being handed a joint backstage by Brown before a stand-up set at the Fillmore in Detroit, a venue, Chappelle noted, in a city legendarily unforgiving to comedy outsiders. The weed, Chappelle claimed, was devastatingly potent. He went on stage, he bombed catastrophically, and when he tried to reach Brown afterward, the calls went unanswered. I think he don't like me no more.
With him, yo, he loves your music. And man, I was kicking it with him. I was talking to him, and I'm like, you know how sometimes parents can over-exaggerate.
Brown told Hip Hop DX in December 2023, laughing with the specific frequency of someone who knows they cannot undo what was done. Brown denied the joint was laced, pushing back on Chappelle's implication in no uncertain terms, including via a verse on his own album, Smoke, with Dave Chappelle, the N******, I think I laced him. / knew it was the pack / he started talking about spaceships. What remained, regardless of whose account carries more fidelity, was Brown's genuine admiration for the man he may have accidentally derailed. I just respect him so much, Brown said, adding that the experience fundamentally deepened his appreciation for stand-up comedy as an art form requiring a precision and discipline that even elite rappers underestimate. Chappelle has never publicly responded to Brown's version of events. The two have not, by any reported accounts, spoken since. Before the controversies of The Dreamer reignited the cultural debate around Chappelle's body of work, something remarkable happened in August of 2023, something that had never occurred in the comedian's 3-decade career. Dave Chappelle appeared on a Billboard Hot 100 chart. The vehicle was Travis Scott's long-awaited fourth studio album, Utopia, a project that arrived on July 28, 2023, after years of fan anticipation, speculation, and the kind of pre-release mythology that only Scott can engineer. The album debuted at number 4 May 1 on the Billboard 200, moving 496,000 equivalent units in its first week, the third largest opening for any album that year, and the single largest for any hip-hop release. All 19 tracks landed simultaneously on the Hot 100. Parasail, a collaboration also featuring Young Lean, on which Chappelle contributed a spoken word introduction and a closing bridge. The track debuted at number 53, driven by 10.5 million U.S. streams in its opening week. And with it, a comedian who had won 5 Emmy Awards and 4 Grammys for comedy albums finally held a music chart position. Chappelle had previously appeared on Billboard's Comedy Albums chart, reaching number 4 with Sticks and Stones in 2019 and number 6 with the powerful 846 performance in 2021. But the Hot 100 had always remained beyond reach. Scott's gravity changed that. In what amounted to a fitting coda to the collaboration, Scott later serenaded Chappelle at a live event, leading the audience in a birthday tribute to mark the comedian's 50th year. A rare, warm moment between two men whose cultural orbits had improbably intersected. The irony is not subtle. In the same calendar span that Chappelle faced renewed industry condemnation for The Dreamer, he was simultaneously ascending into musical territory where comedians almost never venture. The Billboard Hot 100 does not discriminate between the celebrated and the criticized. It only counts streams. What does it mean when the most complicated figure in American comedy is simultaneously accused of private hypocrisy, condemned for public provocation, immortalized on a chart he never chased, entangled in a years-long grudge with a Detroit rapper over a strong blunt, and still, unmistakably one of the most watched performers on the planet. It means that Dave Chappelle is not a story with a clean resolution. He is a pressure point. Every few months, something new arrives. A special, a tweet, an NPR interview, a Billboard debut, and the same conversation restarts, louder, rawer, and no closer to consensus. Azealia Banks did not invent the contradiction at the center of this man's public identity. She simply named it, at midnight, with characteristic ferocity, in a language the internet was always going to amplify. Whether Dave Chappelle is a hypocrite, a provocateur, a genius, a cautionary tale, or all four simultaneously, that verdict belongs to no single source, outlet, or social media post. What is verified? The claims were made, the special aired, the chart entry happened, the blunt was smoked, and the conversation, as always, continues.